Okay, here we have the Thunderchild. She's got the decals on her. She's got about 6 coats of future floor wax placed upon the model after the decals were done. The reason for this is I wanted to try to get rid of the decal seams. If we look up here, you can see in the video the decal seams are pretty hard to see. And that was my goal. A couple places like right here, they are real easy to see. But in most places, you can't really see the seams on the decals. Getting in that close, you can see my crappy ass paint job. Yeah, I had a lot of trouble with that paint job. And I basically gave up on this model at one point, mainly because I started noticing a lot of problems with symmetry. If you look at those 2 round circles, you can see that no matter what I did, those 2 are not going to line up correctly. They just weren't going to. Okay, the windows in the bottom at the front of the deflector dish, you can see they don't line up correctly. There's just other spots all over the place on this thing, and at that point I gave up trying for perfection. Just wanted to get her done. The novice without the trained eye won't catch any of that stuff. Okay, now I do have a couple of spots I still have to work with. Down here on the bottom there's a couple of drip marks from the future where I got a little thick with it. You can see one right there. Okay, I will get that taken care of. A little bit of ammonia and that will just probably come right off there. I'm not sure of that. I'm going to try that and find out. The engine's back here. I colored with a pen. Didn't paint that. But we're just basically spinning around so you guys can get a look at her. See what she looks like. Pretty close to done. I think it came out pretty good considering all the difficulties I had with this thing. Up next is the stand. This is the piece of wood I'm going to use for the stand. And what I'm planning on doing with the stand is pretty much this. Got my block of wood. I'm going to use some acrylic rods embedded in the wood to support the Thunderchild. And I want to pose something like that. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to accomplish that right now, but I bet I can get it done. But I want to pose something like that so that you can spin the model around and see it. I also want to be able to pull the model off the stand. I don't want to glue it to it. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge. I've got a few days to figure it out. This is where I stand on the Thunderchild. All that's left is the stand. Thank you. Okay, here I am with the Thunderchild. I'm working on the stand for it. I'm using some blue tape and acrylic rods to try to figure out the optimal mounting points for this thing. I'm thinking the rods need to go out more like that out there instead of in towards the center. A 3-point mount will work. I just gotta get the rods leveled out and drilled into the wood base, which is underneath the Thunderchild properly. So this is going to take some playing. If I can get something stable, I'll come back and show it on camera. If not, I might have to wait until I actually have the wood drilled and the holes put in. Be back in a bit. Okay, what we have here is a somewhat stable configuration, only because these rods are not really attached to anything. I'm not putting a lot of weight on here. The ship would be balanced if the rods were drilled in and glued into that board. I have to adjust a little bit and then mark their locations. There it goes because I moved. I have to adjust and mark the locations and see if it's centered right. But that's pretty much about how I'm going to do the stand on this thing. I got some ideas for the mounting where the rods touch the model. I bought some black felt and I'm going to cut some circles out and glue it onto the end of these acrylic rods. These rods need to be polished up a little bit. They got scratched up in transit. But anyhow, I think it's about what I'm going to do with the stand. Let me get away from here. Let's mark that on the base so I know where to drill. And I'll be back later. Okay, took the piece of oak out to the garage. Drilled a few holes in it. I've just dry fit the acrylic rods in the oak. And as you can see, the model is standing there. I don't think this detracts from it any. I need to deepen the holes a tiny bit. They're not deep enough to support those rods the way I want. She doesn't sit on there 100% level. She's got a slight uprise to her, and she's tilting to one side a little bit, but I can adjust that. That's just trimming, sanding down on the rods a teeny bit. It also leaves me some room back here. What I think I'm going to do is take a piece of styrene, put a bend into it with a little bit of heat, and then put a decal on the styrene, kind of like what I've used on the intro to some of these videos. You know, say an Akira project or something like that, or Akira class starship. But we're almost done. I haven't done anything but a future coat over those decals, and you can see that the decals are on there pretty good. They don't stand out very badly. They are not completely hidden, but they're pretty good. If I had kept out the coats of future, I'm sure they would have kind of faded out. This one back here is one of the worst ones with the edge, and you can still see it. I might throw a little bit more future at it, but I doubt it. Most likely what I'm going to do is give her a satin finish here in a little bit, and then I'll be done with the Thunderchild. This stand will be done by the end of this weekend. So here we are. There's my current state. Thank you. Okay, another short segment on the Thunderchild. Now, I had some overspray right in here with the future. You can still kind of see it. What I did is I took some ammonia. Ammonia cuts down the future. I mean, it takes it right off. Okay, so you got some overspray, you can hit that with some ammonia, scrub a little bit, and it comes off. I had another bad spot of overspray back here on the nacelle, and it's pretty gone. I just hit it with some ammonia. I'm about to put a clear coat, an enamel-based clear coat over this, a dull coat. I'm going to tape off the nacelles and the buzzard collectors on the red ends before I do it, but the rest of it's going to get a dull coat. Okay, stand is almost done. What I've been doing here is I have been printing. This is on photo paper right here. It is a plaque. I'm going to use this as a name plaque on the stand. Okay, now I'm not going to use the photo paper. This is on decal paper. The instructions on the decal paper require that you give it a couple of clear coats of paint, so I'm about to go clear coat this. I'm trying to decide if I want to apply that directly to the wood. I've done that before, and it usually comes out looking pretty good. Or if I want to take a piece of styrene and apply this to the piece of styrene and mount the piece of styrene on the wood. I haven't figured out which one I am going to do yet. I'm leaning more towards the styrene because of the way the stand is set up. Although I could just cut this out and glue it down on the block of wood and then put some polyurethane over it to seal it in. That is another option, and I'm not sure which one I'm going to do yet. I've never used decal paper before, so this is kind of an experiment here. I printed it twice because this one, if you look at the U, came out pretty bad. It rubbed against something as it came out of the printer, and I wasn't watching. I watched this one, so that didn't happen. So I learned something about working with decal paper. Well, that's it for this short segment. When I come back, the stand should be just about done and the Thunderchild done. While taping up the nacelle, I got a little carried away with the tape, put it over the top of the decals, and it pulled them right off. There's 4 or 5 coats of future on top of those decals, and the tape still pulled them right off. I can fix the red one for sure. I'm pretty sure I can fix that one, but I'm going to have to fix that one to match it. It's just going to be some taping and painting. I'm going to have to tape and paint those. I'm going to have to mix up some blue, and hopefully I can get it to match the rest of the blue on here. If I can't, I'm liable just to pull that decal off completely and pull that one off completely. We'll see what I can do about it and affix it to the board right here. Or I can put a plaque on the side over here, bend a piece of styrene. Oh! Well, at least nothing broke.